Welcome to the last session of this morning in this very interesting set plan conference. I have the pleasure today to moderate the session, which will look at how regulatory activities can foster innovation in the energy grid. And in that session, we will continue the discussions that have started this morning on how to make our energy system fit for the new climate and energy ambition. Earlier this morning, in the session at 11, we explored the role of digitization to foster energy system integration. We then heard about a very concrete experience of the Slovenian network operator who designed and implemented innovative smart grid projects. And in the session now, we will hear the point of view of industry and regulators on how we can make our energy grid more innovative through innovative technologies and changes in the regulatory environment. And the industry will be represented by Dr. Vera Silva. Vera is Chief Technology Officer at GE Grid Solutions. She leads the engineering team responsible for designing and producing products in high voltage equipment, grid automation, digital solutions, and grid services. She's also Vice President of T&D Europe, which is the European Association of the Electricity Transmission and Distribution Equipment and Services Industry. And I think she will talk this morning on behalf of T&D Europe. And for the regulators, we have Jan Kotzek, as you introduced him already, from the European Union Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators. And I should say that Jan is coming as a neighbor here since the agency, ACER, is located in Ljubljana, and I wish I could be with you, Jan, on stage. And I regret very much that neither Vera nor I could travel to beautiful Slovenia today. But I see that the technology here in Slovenia is organized in such a way that the hybrid format works pretty well. So I hope it will be the same for that session. And I propose that we start right now with a presentation from you, Jan. And then I will ask Vera to give us a point of view of industry. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Regulation and innovation, I think these are the two terms which are very rarely put together in one sentence. And I have to admit that regulators are not too fond of innovation. So as if you have young kids, or some pets at home, you know how to give them a bitter pill. You have to put it in something which tastes a bit better. And that's why we at ACER have decided to sort of disguise innovation into efficiency. And I will be speaking mostly about efficiency and linking it to innovation. So, first of all, why do we need it? There are huge efforts ahead. We all know that, right? I think you probably have been speaking about these for the entire morning session. First of all, we have a lot of investments to make, a lot of grid investments, but we also owe it to the consumers to be efficient in how we use the assets that we already have, plus, of course, the assets that will need to be built in the very near future. But is this efficiency something that the regulators are really facilitating right now? That is the question at hand. First of all, to understand the problem, we need to understand how regulation works. How does it pay back the investments? And predominantly in Europe and across the world, we have the so-called rate of return regulation, which, well, in simple terms, pays back the costs of investments, plus, of course, a rate of return, sort of like interest on top of that. And, well, if you pay back the costs of investments and get something on top, some interest on top, you clearly see that this creates a bias towards CAPEX-heavy investments. I would even say that it creates a bias for high-cost investments. Is there a different way? So can we do something else besides just building new lines and all that. I think, once again, this forum is quite well aware of the many different technologies that are there. Well, the issue here is how to unlock their full potential. How to unlock this full potential, how to invite or how to push for creativity. This was a discussion we had with the regulators for quite some time, and we discussed a lot whether to use a stick or a carrot. Well, I'm glad to say that at the end we agreed that you cannot force creativity, you cannot force innovation. So you have to create an environment which would invite innovation. And to invite innovation for regulated entities, you have to bridge the gap, the financial gap, between the let's say, appeal of classical investments, which are high cost, and low cost investments, which simply cannot compete in a world of rate of return. That's very simple. So the idea that we put forward is actually that the remuneration of such investments should no longer look at the cost side of such investments, but should rather look at the benefit side of the investments, and we should move towards a benefit-sharing principle. So if an efficiency investment, and most of efficiency investments are innovative investments are at the core of efficiency. If such an investment brings benefits to the consumers, these benefits should also be shared with the TSO or with the DSO or any other regulated entity, and by that inviting and creating an environment which would really put innovation at the forefront. With that said, I would just like to turn your attention to the position paper we very recently issued on incentivizing smart investments. I believe it is also available at the SET event website under news, if I'm not mistaken, but of course also on ACER's website. I invite you to read it as it describes these ideas a bit more in detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan, for giving us the point of view of ACER on how we could improve the efficient use of electricity transmission assets. And I'm grateful that you could share with us the essence of the position paper that ACER released very recently on this subject, and that reflects, of course, the point of view of ACER, but I'm sure that paper will stimulate further discussions in the weeks and months to come. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm also looking forward to listening to the industry now. And for that, I invite Vera to take the floor. Vera, you've got the floor for approximately 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. And thank you, Jan, for the great presentation. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to ask if the first slide could be put on the screen. And so, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me for the SET Plan Conference 2021. The long-standing SET Plan is really an essential tool for driving innovation in our energy infrastructure to make it greener, more efficient. I think this mission is becoming increasingly urgent in the context of EU decarbonization and recent COP26 conclusions. I'm here today in my role of Vice President of T&D Europe. T&D Europe is an association that represents the transmission and distribution equipment and solutions provider industry, about 200,000 jobs, and driving the bulk of the innovation in terms of technology that's then deployed by our customers in our transmission and distribution grids. So we take quite seriously our role in shaping the future energy systems, and the association is more and more involved into innovation. For example, the proposal of multi-terminal HVDC interoperability project. I mentioned this specifically because once we start technology innovation, we face new challenges and issues. For example, the aspect of interoperability, and they require new ways of working and cooperating between competitors as well as with our customers. And what we feel is that technology hurdles can be overcome. What is really needed is to have a good investment environment. And to achieve this, we need to make sure that ACER supports to create the right environment for grid operator to invest in innovative grid solutions. So if I could have the next slide, please. So we really welcome the ACER position on incentives to smart investments in the grid. The paper is well researched and it really considers the reality of the stakeholder situation. ACER rightly points the main obstacles faced by transmission operators when it comes to investing in smart grids technology. We can see that we need to use efficiently the infrastructure, and this efficiency is a measurable way of measuring innovation. This will drive T&D Europe member companies to find new smart solutions to optimize the use of the grid. Regarding the proposal made by ACER on how to solve the puzzle, I believe they go in the right direction, especially because it contributes to a mindset change in infrastructure investment. And this mindset change is even more important when we need our energy system to be not only reliable, because reliability has to be maintained, but also greener and more efficient. I want to point out that the paper mentions the use of KPIs for measuring the benefits of grid investment. And such indicators can bring more clarity and long-term perspective to operators when it comes to deploying new innovative solutions. We have the example of smart grid indicators that are being used today at national level as part of the clean energy package. And this can only encourage national regulators to include this in their innovation reflection. The final point I would like to add is another dimension to the ACER's position. It was mentioned by Jan very rightfully, the CapEx bias, which makes it easier to reinforce the grid, larger projects and CapEx infrastructure. We need to move beyond this, not only for economic efficiency, but also because we need to consider the time and the circularity aspects. Time is of essence today for European grid infrastructure. Between now and 2030, we have less than a decade to meet our renewable energy targets that are at our door, and grid transformation needs to happen at a very fast pace. Obviously, investing in large-scale infrastructure assets is necessary, but it represents a cost and a time of building and permitting that is on average 6 years to complete a project. In many cases, smart technology can help to solve issues in a considerable shorter delay. And it is very important to consider the aspect of time if we want to fulfill even national energy and climate plans. And circularity. It is also a major concern for TSOs, and their remuneration should reflect this. Better asset management and technology that can help extending infrastructure duration should be considered an important investment as well. This will increase operation efficiency, as mentioned before, and as well as avoid material waste. So with these points in line, I conclude my presentation, and I look forward to continue the conversation on this topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vera, for this positive reaction on ACER's position paper. I think I noted on the two aspects that you highlighted, the aspect of time. Of course, there's little time in front of us and we need to act fast, and smart technologies can help us, and also the circularity aspects, of course, which are also very important, and you know how important they are also for the European Commission. I think, more generally speaking, I think it's always useful in this kind of conferences to hear from industry. And not only is industry an important player of the research and innovation landscape, but it's also turning innovation into new products and services, and therefore into growth and jobs. And this is what the Green Deal is also about. And this is why it's important to keep industry involved in the set plan. And I'm very glad that you could be with us today, Vera. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You heard Jan in his presentation highlighting the efficient use of infrastructure as a driver for innovation. In your opinion, representing T&D Europe, how do new solutions such as direct current, for instance, contribute to the efficiency of the grid?
We take them, if you go back to the basics on what is the difference between the direct current and the AC, is that you actually can use almost the full capacity of the line that you are installing or the cables. So that's one of the first axes of having direct current. It also allows us to connect between islands and continent, as well as interconnections between countries. And that will definitely help to use efficiently, not only the installed generation capacity, access to flexibility, and sharing energy across borders. So direct current, namely in the line of the HVDC technologies, will play a very critical role in meeting the future energy, as well as connecting the offshore, which is a great part of the European ambition.
Thank you very much, Mel. I think your answer confirms that we were on the right path with our decision to address the issue of direct current more thoroughly in the set plan, with the creation, notably, of a new implementation working group on high voltage direct current. So that's good to hear. I'm turning now to Jan, who is on stage. Jan, I noticed you said that you should be inviting the regulatory entities to become innovative. What do you mean by that? Could you please be more specific?
Well, by inviting the regulated entities, of course, it means that the regulators themselves have to create an environment which would, let's say, favor uptake of innovation. And well, it's not only, of course, on regulators to do that. I think this goes beyond the regulators. They're not all powerful in that direction. So in that sense, we have to rely on the ministries. We have to rely also on the Commission. I think your help is definitely most welcome here. But inviting means that then you create an environment that triggers innovation, because there is a very definite objective of it, reaching higher efficiency, which of course pays back very much, of course, and very, very nicely back to the regulated entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. I think that's very interesting what you presented, this new approach. We heard this morning, and we hear it time and again from experts, that we need to move faster than our current pace. And so how quickly do you see this new approach being implemented by national regulatory authorities? And is there anything that can be done to speed up things?
Well, regulators are, slow-moving animals. So the inertia of such systems is quite big, unfortunately. So it takes a lot of time to convince them to do something. But I think, and here is again, I think the message that was also I think shared by many others before me, saying that we all need to work in that direction. I again see the Commission here as an important player. I see the ministries of individual countries as important players. And of course also regulators and ACER that need to jointly develop this new framework and make it work in real life. I think in theory this can be done very soon. It's not, rocket science. So it can be done within, next year, if there is sufficient support. If not, then of course it takes time and years, which I think we do not have.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. We don't have a lot of time, so we need to act fast. And you mentioned the European Commission. You know how committed we are to helping on this matter. Of course, using the set plan, but also using the other tools that we have at our disposal. I'm turning to Vera now for a question. To what extent do you think the need for future proofing of the grid by 2030, but also 2050, changes the calculation for TSO investments?
So I think in addition to the timing constraints which we mentioned, one of the things is that we're going to have a change in the structure of the grid, the location where generation will be produced, the flows across the grid, being that between countries across the continent, but also between transmission and distribution. So one of the first things is that we feel that the transmission system operators and the distribution system operators will need to work very closely on coordination of their investments, as well as coordination of the deployment of the smart technologies and this will impact investment calculations and how they are basically split across the system. The second thing we need from the investment piece, more from the technology manufacturer perspective, is that we have quite a lot of steps ahead. When we look at new technology, at innovation, that goes from designing the equipment, doing the proof of concept, prototypes, testing, accreditation, certification. So all this process takes quite a lot of time, and we do expect increasing orders, and this is great news for our industry. But we feel that we need more clarity in terms of what are the infrastructure investments, even standardization in some of the technologies we're expecting, like some initiatives being driven by TENET across the HVDC, so that we can deliver in a timely manner these investments. So for me, is that we need to raise the awareness that we cannot deliver this in the next day, and that the TSOs need to coordinate with the DSOs, but also with our industry in order to make sure we can do it in a timely way.
Thank you, Vera. Point taken. I think also very important is collaboration, of course. I'm looking if there are any other questions on the Slido. I don't see any, but since we have a couple of minutes still, I would like to launch a poll in Slido. So remember, you can use your smartphone and you type slido.com, and then the hashtag setplan, and the question will appear on your screen. I'm checking on my smartphone at the same time. Yes, so the question is, what do you think is the best incentive for regulated entities such as the transmission system operators and distribution system operators to become innovative? And that's the subject of this session. So are we talking about monetary incentives or reward for implementing innovative solutions? In other words, are we looking for carrots? Or are we more looking for sticks, penalties, if regulated entities fails to implement innovative solutions? Or, of course, perhaps you think regulated entities should not be innovating, but rather investing into sufficiently developed mature technologies, in which case you can also tick that box, or if you think it's another option that we should pursue, then you can also type others. So let's see what you select. Okay, that's quite interesting. So it seems to be a majority of people thinking that we should rather use carrots than sticks and go for monetary incentives. And I think that would go along the lines of what the paper from ACER is recommending. I don't know if any of you wants to react, Vera or Jan, on this result.
I think it's a very positive to feel that KPI-driven incentive, like incentives followed by measuring effectiveness to KPIs, will be the better way, because it tends to be more technology agnostic, and it will drive a different way of cooperation compared to the stick. So I agree with this point. I'm glad to see that's the majority.
Maybe
a reaction from you.
Yeah, maybe from me, just very quickly, I like the result. I think it's very much in line, but not only the number one option of monetary incentives, but also the second one, which I think is something, I mean, that we are sort of in between the lines, not necessarily suggesting, but what we are saying is that, you know, for something, innovation should be pulled and not pushed, if you understand what I'm saying. So innovation in the sense, if you just throw money at the TSOs or DSOs to innovate, that might become innovation just for sake of innovation. If you, on the other hand, say, become efficient and we will reward you for that, they will innovate, but that will not be the target objective. The target objective will be efficiency, and that's, I think, what we want to get. So it's not necessarily you have to be extremely innovative and do something completely new. But please look at the smart technologies which are already up there. I think a couple of were mentioned already, and implement those to the extent possible. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at my clock and I see that we have come to the end of that session. What's clear to me is that the energy transition will require more electrification, which means that more efficient use of the infrastructure will become ever more important in the years to come. And for this reason, we need to address the existing barriers that prevent the development, but also the deployment of innovative solutions that help us optimize the use of the electricity grids. I think, thank you, Vera and Jan, you've given us some directions on what can be done, both in terms of regulation, addressing the CapEx bias, for instance, and in terms of technological innovation, for example, through direct current. And it's encouraging that the set plan is giving more attention to these issues. And I think in the session today, we have shown that the work in this area must involve researchers, governments, industry, but also the national regulatory authorities. So a big thank to you, Vera and Jan, for enlightening us on this subject, and a big thank also to the people in Slovenia who have helped us organize this session in a hybrid format. And I think it worked reasonably well, so I think I'm happy about that. And I pass the floor back to the Master of Ceremony now for information about the next program. Thank you.